So in previous classes, so we just discussed, I'm just recapping about what all we discussed here, the major important points. When it comes to the previous sessions, we discussed about first what is Java. Java is an object-oriented programming language. So then we discussed about what are the required softwares. So we need JDK and also one of the IDE called Eclipse. So these two are for developers. Then along with this, we also have JRE. Then after this, the next important part we discussed is Java program execution flow. Yeah, of course, after the usage of Eclipse only, program execution flow. So in this, there are some important components are there. So one such component is nothing but Java C, that is Java compiler. What is compiler will do? Compiler will check the syntax errors of the Java program. If there are no errors, if everything is right, then generates dot class file or bytecode file. Then the second component is bytecode. What is this bytecode? It is a intermediate code, and then so because of this intermediate code, security is one of the feature that we get in Java, and also platform independency is also possible with this. Yeah. Then next, there is one more component called JVM, and the internal parts of JVM I didn't discuss yet. And the purpose of JVM is which converts the byte code into binary. Yeah. So these are the some components that we discussed in Java program execution flow. So after these things, we just started discussing about the Java data types. And when it comes to Java data types, there are two different categories: technically primitive and non-primitive. And when it comes to primitive, so there are 8 primitives: byte, then short, int, long, to store any numeric data. And then so we have float and then double to store any decimal data, char to store any single character, and then boolean to store true or false. This is just types and their purpose. Then when it comes to non-primitive, there are multiple non-primitives are there. At this data types level, we'll discuss about string. So after these things, we discussed about this is also recapitulation only. We discussed already. Then followed by we discussed about the data type syntax. And here the syntax is what? Data type, then space, variable name of programmer choice, then assignment operator, then the data or value. So based on this, we discussed all the 8 primitives. What are the possibilities and what is the different way of using a character and all those things we discussed in Saturday's class. Okay. So I'll share the recording of this Saturday's class to your mail address today at the end of the day. And I mean end of the class. Please go through that so that you'll be understanding the next concept more clearly. Then to continue from where we stopped in the yesterday's class, that is the next type. So we have to discuss is string. string type. Yeah. So for this, the syntax is same, even though it's a non-primitive, the syntax is same, the basic syntax. And why we'll be using string, or when we'll be using string? When a particular data is not possible to store with any of the 8 primitives, then it is recommended to go for a string type. For example, like names, mail IDs, date of births, or address, all these things are not possible with primitives. So we should go for a string type. Then for example, the requirement is, say, store James. James Gosling is a person who introduced this Java programming language. So I'm taking only James. So to store this data called James by using the syntax, so what we should use in place of data type? String with S capital. Space, some variable name. Variable name is always a programmer choice. We can use a meaningful name. Even for any data, we have to use a meaningful variable name is recommended. Then here, the data is nothing but James. Then semicolon. So this is the basic syntax. Any difference here? Is it right to store a data called James like this, or anything is to be added to this to make it the syntax correct? Yeah, we have to add. So when it comes to string values or string data in Java, it is mandated to enclose them in double quotes. So otherwise syntactically wrong. So with double quotes, it is syntactically right. Yeah. Then next, we discussed about one more point about this string called as, it is fixed size or it's a varying size data type. It's a varying size. Then how much memory will be consumed when this line of code is executed by the JVM? How much memory will be consumed? The entire memory? No, if entire memory consumed by only string, then how can we run the program? It's a problem, right? So here, since it is varying size or no limit, the meaning is, because we are storing how many characters value? 5 characters. And in previous discussion, each character takes how much of memory? Each character takes 2 bytes of memory, if you remember. So therefore, James is a combination of 5 characters. Therefore, 2 bytes plus 2 bytes plus 2 bytes plus 2 bytes plus 2 types. That is 5 types. So that means when JVM execute this line of code in memory or in the RAM, how much memory allocation will happen? 10 bytes of memory allocation will happen. And then the container name is same as our variable name. Inside this, the data is James. This is how it will happen. And no limit means it's not the undefined or unknown value. It is a complete memory that it takes, depends on the value that we store. To make you understand the same point, let me take one more example. Say here string, I'm using a variable name called n equals, in double quotes, I'm using James space Gosling and semicolon. Now this value consumes or occupies how much memory? (26 bytes of memory) because yeah, so total 13 characters were there. So here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then space is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 characters are there. Each character takes 2 bytes of memory. Therefore, 13 times into 2, then which consumes 26 bytes of memory. And then n, and here is the value James Gosling in the memory. That is how a string consumes memory, depends on the data. And for all primitives, depends on the data type. Yeah, get this point clearly. String memory consumption is depends on the data or value. But when it comes to all previous discussions of primitives, if you remember, it's because character, then it takes 2 bytes. Yeah. So in the previous classes, it is because of float, it takes 4 bytes. It's because of double, it takes 8 bytes. It's because of character, it takes 2 bytes and all. But when it comes to string, it's because of the value. It consumes a certain amount of memory. That's a clear difference between primitive types to non-primitive types. Then here, the next possibilities. What all we can store by using a string. Some more examples. Say by using string, can we save our mail ID? Yes, one equals a mail ID, for example, say abcd at the rate some gmail.com. Is it correct? Can we use a mail ID like this to store? Just a second. Yeah. So can we use abc at the rate? It is not allowing me to write there. I'm writing a separate line. This is one string value. Is it correct? Yes. Can we store this by using primitives? No. That's why we have to go for string. The next string, some next variable ES2 equals, so in double quotes, 6th slash 05 slash 2024. Today's date I'm storing. Is it possible to store like this? Yes. Then can we use any primitives to store this date of the day? No, because of the slash, it's a non-numeric data, so we cannot use it. So like this, the next example, say string ES3 equals in double quotes a space key, then end of double quotes, semicolon. A space I am trying to store. Does string allow to store the space? Yes, it allows. The next one more example, say string S4 equals only double quotes starting, double quotes ending. Nothing is there. Is it possible to store nothing? No value. Yeah. So remember, with character it is not possible, but with string it is possible. That's called as empty string. It's called as a empty string. It is possible. In double quotes, when we don't enter anything, then that's called as a empty string in a Java programming language. It is possible. Yeah. Then here, next example, just please observe, you are concentrating on writing only. String S5 equals, I have a value 123, but I am using double quotes to store. Is it correct? Yeah. Is it supported or do we get any syntax error? It is possible, right? Then we already discussed in the previous classes. I'm sorry. So we already discussed in the previous classes that we can also store by using int I equals 1, 2, 3. Correct? So 2 are correct. Which is recommended? Should we use int to store a number 123 or should we use string to store 123?
If we use a string, we can refer as numerical value or string value. If we use int, we can.
Yeah. So here, if everything is possible by string, for example, say string S6 equals, I am storing something as 3.14 in double quotes. Then here, one more string data type, S7 is my example. Then here I'm storing one single letter A. So are these two syntactically correct? Yes. In a simplest conclusion, everything is possible to store by using string. When everything is possible by using string, then why we should learn 8 primitives? If you learn only string, it's enough, no?
Easy programming, we not use it as a user, then we not.
Yeah. So here the conclusion is when a particular data or value is possible to store by using primitives, we have to use primitive only. Then if it is not possible, like mail ID not possible with any primitives, date is not possible. Yeah. Then this empty string is not possible. Sorry, empty value is not possible with anything, any previous things. That's why you have to go for a string for various important reasons. You may get a cross question in this. So your answer should be, for example, if we take this 123, it is a combination of how many characters? 3 characters. Then how much is the memory? 6 bytes of memory. Correct? Next, if it is int type, then because of int, how much is the memory? How much memory consumption will be for integer? 4 bytes. 4 bytes of memory. So one reason is, if the same value we are trying to store by using int and string, then which is consuming less memory? Int is consuming less memory. So consuming less memory is a good programming skill, or more memory is a good programming skill? Less. So that is one reason you have to go for this is integer over string. Then second example. So if this is S5, for example, if you want to print it, system.out.println I plus 1. What is the output that we are going to get for this line? I is 123 and I'm adding plus 1. What's output? 124 is output, which is we are expecting. Right? So here, if we use a system.out.println, I'm using the short form of it for writing. So S5 is our variable plus 1. So here, what's output we are going to get? Yeah, for this, we are going to get output called as 1, 2, 3. And then the next value will be merged to this, not added. Yeah, that is one more reason. So if you are storing some numeric data using string type, we can't perform arithmetic operations. That is one more reason why we should go for integer. The next reason, at this point of time, I can only explain you by convincing it. The next reason is having primitive types for Java will make Java programming language as 100% object-oriented programming language or not? My simplest question is Java is a 100% object-oriented programming language or not? The answer is no. Java is not a 100% object-oriented programming language. When something is not 100%, then it's an advantage or disadvantage? Disadvantage. Generally, if I'm not 100%, then I have some loopholes, some drawbacks. But that's an advantage to Java programming language. Why? Because of these primitive types, the execution is faster. Execution of a same program by using other programming languages and Java programming language, Java program will give the output faster if we use a primitives in that. That's an added advantage. So the execution is faster because of the primitive types. Now here integer is primitive, then here string is a non-primitive. When same thing, if you are just storing it and only printing, then storing it at integer and only printing it, where integer output is much faster. That's advantage to Java programming language. So these are the three reasons. One is memory consumption may be more with string compared to integer. And we cannot perform arithmetic operations with string, but we can perform with integer. And execution wise, string is slower, integer is faster. That's why when something is possible with any of the primitives, we should go for primitives only. That's the answer you have to give if you get a cross question. Am I clear with this? Yeah. Parvati, can you hear me? Please respond. So let us see the same string execution through Eclipse as well. So in last class under data types project, I already discussed about the various other types as well. So from that same file, so we discussed about long and its possibilities. Then next float and its possibilities, double and its possibilities. Then float some important conclusions. Then about character, any single character. Then space, but null is not possible. That's why I have commented. Then there is a different way of storing characters in Java programming language, that is unichar format. And Boolean, what is the correct way of using true or false? They are predefined keywords in this. All these points we discussed. Like I said, you can go through yesterday's video, you'll understand. Okay, if not, anytime you can just reach me out. I'll explain you again. Okay. Then the next part that we are discussing about string. The first point is a string S has to be capital. The next variable of S1 I am using assignment operator in double quotes. Okay, first I wanted I don't use double quotes. I'm storing say James semicolon. Is it right syntactically? No. The rule to use a string type in Java programming language is it must be enclosed in double quotes, which is right. Then along with this name, then can we store something which is having a space in that value? Yes, we can store it. So for that, let me use say James then space Gosling. It is also accepted. Yeah. The next, by using string, we can store something like date. Yeah. So integer also we can store some data, but we can dates we can store. So I'm storing 06 slash May 05 slash 2024 is the year, accepted. Yeah. So like this, we can also store a space using this. So I'm using double quotes, a space key in between them, then semicolon, accepted. Then one more example I'm using string S5 equals only double quotes, nothing inside. Possible? Yes, this is what we call it as a empty string. Then along with this, we also discussed about string S6 equals some value like say 123. Yeah. So I'll just print it. So I'm using the print function system.out.println. So we can see all those, but I'm printing S3, then followed by I'm printing S4, which is a empty, sorry, space. Then I'm printing S5 as well. Then next, I am printing S6, but plus 1. S6 plus 1 I'm adding. Then followed by, as we discussed some integer example, I am taking int I equals 123. I am using a print function this time, and I'm printing, say, I plus 1. I plus 1. Yeah. So these are some examples I have taken. Here some string data to store, and here I'm printing the same thing. But because S6 is 123 in string format, I'm adding 1 to that. And same 123 I'm storing into integer type, and I'm storing adding by 1 to print it. Now let us save this code. And a keyboard shortcut to execute a Java program is Control F11. Control F11. If you are having a functional key, then Control function F11 you have to use it. So you can see here. So here is a date of birth, then followed by here is a space, then null. Sorry, nothing is there. That's why we cannot select. The next we are using string plus 1, string variable plus 1. That's why we are getting 1, 2, 3, 1. And finally for integer, we are getting 1 to 4 or 124. So this is about the string type in Java programming language. And as we move to the end of the coding classes, string is having some long story that we'll discuss as we move on in the further classes, maybe after around some 20 classes. So as of now, this is the just basic introduction of a string only. Am I clear? Or anybody wants me to repeat anything? Or do you have any questions? Please be clear. And online, you can type your question clearly if you have anything to ask. Any questions, guys? No. Okay. Then here, I have one conclusion. So here I'm writing some syntax. You have to tell me whether I'm right or wrong. So assume that I'm writing the code inside the class, say public class, some class name of programmer choice always. This is the class opening and closing. Inside this, for any Java program to execute, we have to use public static void main. Why we should use and all, as we move, we'll understand. So here, string square brackets, then space args, then opening curly brace to start, close curly brace to end. Inside this one, I'm just discussing the same thing that we already learned just now. Some int I equals some value, say 100. Then I'm using system.out.println, say print I. Is it correct? Is my 2 lines of syntax is correct or no? Yes. So if yes, then what's output for this line? 100 is output. Okay. The next system.out.println. So I am using 222 directly inside the print function. Am I right with this syntax? All of you? No. Okay, I will not say the answer. I'll go for next questions. The next question is, for example, say string yes equals in double quotes Java. The next system.out.println say print yes. Are these two lines of code is correct? If yes, then what's output? Java is output. The next line system.out.println I am printing say Monday directly in double quotes. Is it correct? Yes or no? Yeah, no. Then our very first class of welcome program, did we use anything than the print statement? No, directly we used a print statement and we are printing something in double quotes and we got the same thing as a output. Therefore, this line has to be correct. Yes or no? Yes. Here also it is correct then. So as per our day one class, it is correct. Then it is giving the output as Monday. Now tell me, so because we are using double quotes, it's what type of value? It's a string value or a variable? It's a string value or string variable? Something in double quotes is a value part or a variable part as per the syntax. No. So here data type, then space, variable name equals value is the syntax. So based on this syntax, now where we are using double quotes, for example, say string, then yes equals in double quotes say Monday. Now this Monday is a variable or value? Monday is a string value. That's why here it is a string value. Correct or not? So because it's a string value, then can we use value directly inside a print function? String value we are using directly inside the print function. We are not using variable to store and we are not printing variable. So here we are using a variable to store Java and we are printing the variable name to get the output as Java. But here are we using any variable approach or directly value approach? Directly value approach. Is it correct or wrong? It's correct. Why it's wrong? You mean we will not get the output? Our day one class, mister. Day one class, welcome to Java or welcome to our Hello World program. Directly we are using in double quotes means string value we can use directly inside a print function. Then here also the same thing we are doing. Now observe. So here 100 is a value. I is what? A variable to store that value and we are printing that variable to see the output. Correct or not? But here I am using what? 222. Is a value or variable? 222 is a value. For example, say int j equals to 222. Now 222 is under value or under variable? Value. Then if we can use string value directly inside a print function, now can we use integer value directly? No? Okay, just get this point right. I don't know what's the reason behind no. This is 100% yes. Okay. It's not only the variable approach to print the values. We can print the value also directly, but by following the syntax of the value for integer. No, here does integer requires any quotes to store its value? No, then here I am using integer value. This is a int value, I'm printing it directly. Understood? Are you getting me? Any confusions or questions, please? So, okay. So here I am using char some ch equals at the rate is my character value. The rule says that it must be enclosed in single quotes when we are storing it. Now, can we print this ch variable? Yes. What's the output for this line of code? At the rate is the output. Correct or not? Now, in my next line, instead of storing into some variable, I want to print capital A. Capital A should be my output. Tell me what to do. This no, simplest format, not a Unicode format. Simple. Yeah. In single quotes, a character value. Can we use A? Yes or no? Does this line of code will give output or not? It will give the output of A only. So here we are doing what? we are storing the character value into some variable and we are printing the variable. But here I am printing the character value directly. This is a char value. Yeah. So this
By using format is automatically take what it is.
exactly, that's a pointer. So if we no need to use every time that char some ch2 different variable and a is the value inside that, then system.out.println ch2. This is what we understood previously. But now to give you the other possibilities, so here I'm asking if we can use a string value directly to print it, why can't we use integer value? Why can't we use character value? At the same time, one more example, system.out.println, I'm using 3.14f. Is it correct? Yes, it's correct because 3.14f is a float value. So we can use value directly. Then this line of code is going to give the output of 3.14.
Sir, in single quotes, if you type double A, it will out.
In single quotes, if you type double A. So for example, his question is system.out.println, the character value, but double A he wants to type. Then can we use two characters to store using character type?
No, sir.
This is syntax error. Yeah. So this is compilation error, or I would say syntax error. The rules we have to follow. Character value must be enclosed in single quotes. It can be a variable format or value format. Float value must end with f if it's a decimal number. Then it's a directly variable with value or direct value also possible. Understood? Still you look with some confusion.
I did clear that class.
Ah.
Sir,
Okay, so you're expecting there also double quotes as a string format. Even double quotes also will give the A as output. Okay. Yeah, so to give you more clarity for the same discussion, let me go for the same program and the last lines of code, I'm adding the same thing. I'm using a print function directly. I'm using an integer value called 222 or any integer value, for example. Am I right syntactically? Yes, it's accepted. The next, I'm using in single quotes, say capital A. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. The next, I use a print function, then 3.145f. Is it possible? Yes. So any value also we can directly print from the print function, depends on the programming requirements. Now I execute the last three lines of code we have to notice. So there 222, then A and 3.145 as it is. Understood? Yeah. So online, any questions so far? No. Parvati, please respond.